why are you a Maoist? Like, why does this organization, this Occupy Wall Street, appeal to you?
It appeals to me because I got screwed over by the capitalist system myself. I lost my job last year because I wanted to transition from male to female with my gender identity.
But how did the capitalist system make you lose your job?
You have a boss that doesn't believe I'm a human being.
I don't. In China. How would they treat you in China if you tried to do that? If Maoism is so good.
If the party stayed true and didn't become revisionist, they would treat me like a human being.
So, like the Stalinists and those people that killed millions of people. So you support that policy?
You don't have the figures to back up. You know, they're made up. You've been reading the Black Book of Communism or something like that.
Anyway.
Okay, today we wanted to talk about something that's been getting all over social media through memes. A lot of people are ragging and hating on capitalism and Western civilization.
Yep, it's a common theme amongst millennials especially, which is sad to say. I'm a millennial, but I'm kind of disowning my own millennial generation.
Yeah, we're disowning them and throwing them into the pond, figuratively. We're not really.
No, not really.
We're not mafia people here, but.
No, well, if we did say that, we're communicating a threat, so.
Oh yeah, it might trigger a lot of people.
Oh no.
Without any guns. Gosh. How triggered would they be if you how triggered would they be if you had a video of a trigger of a gun?
So it's a trigger?
That's a double trigger. Man, that's well, okay. Anyways, back to the topic here. Like, we'll have people. They'll everything that was ironically brought to them that they're using was made possible by capitalism. They'll be on the internet. They'll be on a MacBook, or they'll be on a nice fancy laptop, and they'll be complaining about capitalism.
Yeah, you'll sit there and hear about how capitalism is evil, and you'll see on the bottom of the message sent from iPad.
Yeah, is it like what? I'm like, name some amazing things that Soviet Russia has given us besides Tetris.
That's kind of hard to beat.
Tetris is amazing. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, like a lot of these ideas and a lot of this technology was brought forth. There was incentive behind it.
Yep.
There was competition.
You're right, and competition really is what drives people to do better. You know, we see it all the time in sports. Why are records getting shattered every year?
Yeah, because
you'd think there'd be a ceiling where humans couldn't get any higher or any faster, or any stronger, but records get shattered every year.
Definitely, and I hope that doesn't go away. I hope the Olympic competitiveness does not go away, and they all get participation trophies in the future. That'd be, oh my God, that'd be a death of that.
Olympic participation trophies. Oh my God.
God. Goals for everybody.
No, bronze for everybody.
Oh, bronze for everybody. Okay, no one's a winner. We're all bronze.
We're all equally losers.
Oh man. Okay.
We'd all lose, but hey, at least we're losing fairly.
Yeah, it's just these people, they don't seem to think outside the box. They don't seem to think a lot of the things have gotten them their freedoms, their ways of life.
Yeah, and it's not just technology or the market or capitalism by itself, but Western philosophy, Western economic theories, Western
ideals,
Western scientific methods. It's all been developed and accumulating over the past couple centuries.
Yeah, and granted, there was issues there. We could there's a few examples like Catholic Inquisition, Spanish Inquisition, and Catholic,
But one could argue that's not an entirely Western philosophy, given that the Spanish Inquisition and the Catholic Church was actually anti-liberalism, classic liberalism of the time.
Yes, but look what resulted from that. Alternative thought came out from that, and people countered that. And look what happened after that.
Exactly.
Things got the West became so dominant, so advanced, especially after the Industrial Revolution, they just hyperspeeded way beyond anybody else.
Think about the way the train by itself revolutionized
Oh
the
my
world.
gosh, yes.
I mean, that not just here in America, but in Europe as well. And
India still uses railroads that were built like 150 years ago by the British Empire.
yeah, we still use railroads recently.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
they're fantastic for moving lots of objects in one direction very quickly.
yeah. And a lot of these people, they seem to think only the West has ever had an empire. They don't seem to understand.
Well, there's been plenty of Eastern empires, Middle Eastern empires. You know, and then there's lots of. Let's make a distinction here, because to say Eastern, Middle Eastern, and Western is not exactly fair per se, because there's a lot of nuances in there.
Yeah, definitely.
Like your Cold War Eastern, including Russia, is different from your Oriental Eastern, your Asian Eastern.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of our viewers would get that. There's a big,
Right.
variety, and we're being broad here. It's like
Yeah.
2,000 more years of known empires throughout, and they've brought, like a lot of things. It's not always been pretty, but
No.
they've also brought a lot of good things. Also, look at the Roman Empire. They brought roads. They brought aqueducts that brought fresh water to these people. They brought
Organized military structure.
organized military structure, like he said. Even religious tolerance for the most part. There's exceptions, all right. We're not, obviously we know about.
They went through many periods where they didn't have so much religious tolerance, but
They did have periods of it,
Yeah.
and that's what allowed it to grow so much.
yeah, I agree. And there's other empires too. Even you look at the Ottoman Empire, for example. Again, Rome isn't a clean slate. They've done tons of terrible things. The Ottoman Empire is the same way, but these giant empires have in many ways contributed to the world at large in positive ways.
Yeah, like it's yin and yang is so true. Sometimes good things
Come from bad things.
bad things, yes. And me personally, I descend from a legacy of Anglo-Saxon people. I'm happy Rome came over there and whooped their butts out of the woods. I'm happy for it. I'm happy for the British Empire for existing, because I wouldn't be here in the United States.
Yeah, and
Simple as that.
it says you asked me earlier, name a place and a time you'd rather be.
Yeah, especially like people like to get on people like from 1776. Where else would you rather be during that time? There's very few places I'd rather be.
Yeah, I mean, granted, we weren't a superpower or anything at that point, but we had a lot of things that the rest of the world was not enjoying.
Yeah, so
Religious freedom, I mean, lots of things that other nations didn't have. The funny thing is, people hear the word the American dream and they think it's Americans dreaming the American dream, but in actuality, the American dream is a concept of foreigners wanting to be Americans,
definitely.
because America is a land of opportunity. That's what was so appealing about the New World back in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century, and even today, I think, is that we are not straddled by or saddled with the burdens of history or Europe's past,
Yeah, definitely.
or the Middle East past, or Asia's past. It's a
God.
continent that there's not a lot of history on right now.
Definitely.
It's not long, and so far it's been pretty darn good.
Yeah, and a lot of these people. This is going to sound somewhat insensitive, but whatever. Like a lot of these people complaining, I'm like, I'll be honest, you would not want to be in your culture. You would not want to be in that. If you knew what you have now, you would not want to live in the culture your people came from 500 years ago. Okay.
Right.
This is going to sound really simple and everything, but like a lot of some of these cultures, some are good. Some did some pretty crazy stuff, okay? I mean, I don't think anybody wants to get,
Take a look at the Aztecs. Man.
Yeah, I mean, they did a lot of amazing things, don't get me wrong, but
But they also would sacrifice your heart.
Yeah.
On top of a pyramid. And,
Definitely.
It's like.
Yeah, I mean,
cutting tongues out and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And for India, for example, they did a lot of amazing things too. They brought us so much science, technology, in the past, Middle Ages, and before that.
And medicine today.
Medicine today, yeah, they're coming back again now.
Yeah.
But when the British came, they did one thing right. If there's one thing you cannot deny, they did right over there. They made it illegal for widows to be burned to death. I'm. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was called sati or something like that. I don't got the actual name right, but look it up. It's something that they got rid of because it's just wrong.
Yeah, just because the husband dead doesn't mean you gotta burn the wife.
I know. I mean, obviously you gotta respect other cultures and you gotta think they come from a different mindset, but still, it's just. I think a lot of people can agree that's kind of going a bit too far.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest championing principles of Western civilization, one of the greatest things that Western philosophers thought of is individual liberty.
Yeah.
Without the concept of individual liberty, what's wrong with burning a widow?
Yeah, they never raised with that concept, but I think it should be. It's a disservice to these people to hide any of these new ideas to them. You need to give people many different ideas and many different ways of thinking and thought. It's really detrimental to them. It makes them closed-minded, and it makes them very ritualistic.
And since we've been talking about Western civilization and Western philosophy, one of the fantastic things about exploring other cultures and stuff is you do see how superior it really is. I know that sounds terrible, but there's a reason that Western civilization grew at a rate no other type did.
Definitely. And granted, we did have our empires, but here's one great example. Do you think Gandhi would have survived in Moscow? Like
No.
during the height of the Soviet? No.
No.
What about Martin Luther King? No.
No.
I mean, obviously they both got taken out by crazy people, but they would have not even got their foot in the door in those countries.
Right, and keep in mind again that they were taken out by individuals,
Yes.
not by the state.
Yeah, by individuals.
The individual is, in a way, weaker. My point is that the greater the divisions of power, the more people that hold power, the less potent it is to harm.
Yeah, and look at their effects. They were nonviolent, and they hit a conscience. They hit the conscience of the people, even the government, people in the government.
Yeah.
Granted, they did get arrested and whatnot, but they were released eventually, and they were still able to do what they're doing. And eventually, their cause was righteous, and it made a lasting effect.
Yeah, Martin Luther King Jr. said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that if you find a law that's unjust, go ahead and violate the law, and then pay the penalty of the law to raise the public consciousness about it. And that concept only works in a place that doesn't execute you in the town square for going against the government.
Sorry to interrupt you. That only works in a society where people have different ways of thought that are accepted, and they let their empathy take over, and they're able to think about liberties.
Right. Exactly. And like you were saying, Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi couldn't have existed in Moscow and in Russia because that concept of disobeying an unjust law and paying the penalty, well, the penalty for it's probably death.
Yeah.
Especially if you do it in such an outspoken anti-establishment type way.
Definitely.
And the fact that both the British Empire and the United States of America in both of these cases are understanding enough to allow protest and civil discourse is crucial to liberty as a whole, particularly to individual liberty.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to America, we have such. I love our laws. We could state our opinion. We could have debates. Even some countries in Europe, that's hard to do without getting sued.
Yeah, well, you consider denying the Holocaust in Germany is illegal.
Yeah, I mean,
which is noble, but how far are you willing to go doing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. You know, obviously, we both disagree with the Holocaust denial. You know, it's a crazy thing. You know, I don't know why anybody would do it, but still.
But a psycho has a right to say it if he wants to.
Yeah. Growing up in the United States, we believe anybody, no matter how crazy their beliefs, they have the right to say whatever it is. When we also have a right in return to counter it and debate it and point out how bad and crazy it is.
Right. In fact, if you have to suppress other types of speech, and I don't just mean on a governmental level, if you have to make a safe space, if you have to defend your ideas by making them impervious to criticism, then what you're really saying is my ideas are too weak to stand up to scrutiny.
Definitely. And that's how ironically, you're right on a lot of these things, because these people, the only thing they could do is shut you down, shout, call you names. They can't bring up a proper debate. And in closing here, I just think a lot of these people, they need to travel abroad, if possible, or talk to people from other countries. That might be cheaper, more feasible way of doing it. They need to really get out of their box and see how these other people live.
Yeah.
So
I agree.